those particular costs driven by global inflation pressures at the petrol pump or at the supermarket are putting pressure on a wider group of people. People like me, Lisa, we don't need that, and that's what we would have got with National's untargeted tax cuts. This is a targeted short-term payment. And there is one other point I should probably make, which is we needed to strike a balance here of doing something that wouldn't overly exacerbate the very problem we're trying to resolve, inflation. And untargeted approaches like the tax cuts Nationals are proposing could potentially have exacerbated inflation much more than what we settled on here.
Inflation's at this 30-year high, it's at 7%, wages are only at 3%, and what it's meaning is that every Kiwi is going backwards and they're worse off than they were 12 months ago. And so, as you were saying, yesterday I was out at actually Kids Can, they provide food programs into schools, and what they're seeing is unprecedented amounts of need and struggle and pain and suffering for people. And so, this is a real issue, and what we've got to do is think substantively about how do we run and lead an economy in a time of inflation. And once it gets its grip on, it destroys economies, and more importantly, it causes huge amounts of suffering and pain for people.
Now, we always knew going into the budget that it would be a big spending budget. Grant Robertson had forecast that he was planning an additional $6 billion in spend on top of existing baselines, which would have been the highest increase in expenditure on record. In fact, what occurred and is laid out in the budget documents is that spending went well beyond that.
We're supportive of the Prime Minister and the ministers in general getting out and doing trade around the world. It's really important. I mean, New Zealand's a small country. We don't get rich by selling stuff to each other. We actually do have to go out in the world with 195 countries and 7.8 billion people. And so, you look at America. Australia has a free trade agreement. You look at what the Australians have even managed to do during the COVID crisis, getting a free trade agreement in place with India. So, we want the government hustling and building relationships and converting those relationships into trade opportunities for our businesses.